Hi, Art 3. This is a quick video tutorial on FigureGround Relationship. It's the fourth unit in our first 9 weeks in Art 3. And up until this point, we've been doing a lot of practice things that sort of require you to take all the skills you've learned from Art 1 and Art 2 and sort of put them together. And now we're going to really take a step off in our complexity and our expectations. And you'll see that in this video. So what is FigureGround Relationship? You can read it there. But in short, it's when the background has a clear relationship with the foreground image, whatever the foreground image is. In this one that's here that you can see done by a Hoover student, you can see that the green and the blue in the background, that's actually spray paint. She took like a variety of trashy, junky type things, put them on top of a piece of illustration board, and then took spritzes of spray paint to create the shapes that are going on in the background. She then took a colored pencil and did a self-portrait over top. The reason why those things relate, you could pick really three things. One, you can tell that the blue of the spray paint in the background relates to the choice of the blue colored pencil that the portrait's done in. You could also see that that the skin tone is sort of unfinished. It allows that color from the background to show through to sort of reference as her skin. Gives her green skin, but you still in your mind can accept the fact that there's now a relationship between them. And arguably the third one could be, you'll notice that the sort of tilt of the shapes that are in the background is the same as the tilt in her head. Everything's got a tilt to it or sort of an angle. So there's a clear relationship between what's going on in the background as well as what's going on in the foreground. So how does FigureGround work? We just sort of already talked about that, but you can look again. One of the biggest things that you can do with FigureGround Relationship that you should try is gestalt. Gestalt is a complex psychological term, but in the art world, we're going to look at one prong of the 5 areas of gestalt. And gestalt is, in this case, means it's when your eye doesn't see something, but your mind just sort of naturally finishes it on its own. So I'll give you some examples of that. So if you look here at this vase, or do you see 2 black faces that are sort of coming close to kissing each other, your mind might see one, your mind might see the other. Your mind is doing the job of finishing it. Are there really 2 faces there? Well, arguably, I guess you could say that. Or is there a white vase there? Either way, no matter what you see, your mind is sort of finishing the work. Neither one is really there, but your mind has convinced you that something is there. So your mind is doing the work, even though your eye doesn't completely see it. Another really great example of that is this one here. You can see the white triangle, or what you might think is a white triangle, but in fact are 3 black sort of Pac-Man type shapes. And they allude to the fact that there's a triangle. So your mind is completing that there's a triangle there. There really is not. One more example, always a popular one, is the one here about vanity, done by I believe a German artist in the 15th or 16th century. You can see the really unique way that he shows the woman looking in a mirror at her own reflection, but the mirror and the vanity she's sitting at also becomes a skull, reminding that being vain is sort of a lost cause. So there are other examples of gestalt in there, but we're going to get to a few artists who use it. So you might not appreciate this work or completely understand it, but let's take in short, Alberto Giacometti did work right after World War II, and the idea of seeing people who had lost their lives, lost their fortunes, lost everything about themselves. And so he would do these almost skeletal-like removed creatures. And you can see in this one how it creates a figure-ground relationship. The background shows through a little bit, the colors are the same, and what's supposed to look like this sort of skeletal city that sort of bombed out in the background clearly has a relationship with the figure. Here's a modern version of a lady. She's an artist who traveled throughout, I believe, Africa and even in Japan, backpacked through different countries. And so as she collected little pieces of paper, gift wrap, maps, books that she read, she would actually use them to then draw on top of, and you'll notice that the drawings have a clear relationship to the background. In this case, you can see that the headdress on the woman on the left-hand side is actually a piece of wrapping paper. Do we kind of assume it's a headdress based on the way it's placed? Absolutely. So there's a little bit of gestalt happening. Your mind is finishing something that really is not there. So your job is to do 2 steps in this process before you commit to a final. 1, take a look at the 3 options for themes, and your job is to research that theme, look up some information online, and you should be willing to take some photo references. Those photos should be from friends that you have here in the classroom, or friends or your parents or whoever you want, but your whole entire assignment is based on one of those 3 themes, and you'll notice some information there. You're eventually going to turn in two little mini proposal sketches that are in full value of two possible ideas. They could be based on the same theme. You could do two different themes until you figure out what you want. Step two is practicing with the media. So I, in class, am giving you a little tiny 4x4 or 5x5 piece of spray paint background that's already been spray painted on, and your job is to take a colored pencil, draw something simple. I'm not asking to require what you draw, but something simple that shows an understanding of FigureGround relationship. And then to choose one of the other two options for media. So it could be a spray paint or splatter background, or it could be a collage. You make that decision. So here's an example of a piece of spray paint sample that you could have used in class. And you'll notice that in this case, you'll want to choose a colored pencil that shows a clear and obvious relationship with this background and draw something on top of it. Let's look at a few Hoover students' works. I'm going to scroll through them quickly, but you can see a clear relationship between the choices they made and the subjects they did. So you'll notice that in both of these, they used spray paint. The one on the left actually used rocks and stones from the parking lot in school and splattered them down and then did spray paint on top of them. And then a few more that show that example of FigureGround relationship. The one on the right in this screen, you can see actually did collage. They actually spray painted some magazine and newspaper clippings and then spray painted over top of them, and then used again one colored pencil, in this case an indigo blue colored pencil, on top of the yellow spray painted background. So as a reminder, where do you begin? You should be looking at this slide, slide number 19, read over the requirements that you need to do for that assignment. And then, of course, on slide 20, be fully aware of what you're being graded on. Nothing there should be a surprise based on the explanation you got. But if you look at the bottom, it tells you research and use of media and narrative statements. So your job is to clearly tell a story about one of the three topics. If you look at slide 19, it tells you it's either human equality or rights, human fear or phobia, or a human metamorphosis into an animal. Your job is to make it very clear in your visual statement what you draw, how you draw it, what colors you choose to draw, what texture, and what point of view is that you can tell that story. Anyone who looks at your image should be able to read and understand the story that is presented. So hopefully that information helps. And as always, you'll get some more information in class, and you should check out the file folder in Schoology.